So there's been this big beef going on the left, and I've tried to just kind of not talk about it because it's so sort of, toxic and just it's too divisive, to be honest, too divisive. But there is one thing interesting here that I saw that I did want to talk about. So there was this piece written about this whole situation by a guy named Eric Levitz, and I guess the author, Eric Levitz, kind of included Kyle Kulinski with people who are sort of maligning intentions or saying that AOC is a sellout. Now, there's different groups in this, okay? There's different groups in this back and forth. Essentially, if you don't know what's going on, Jimmy Dore, who is a commentator, basically said that AOC and the squad should withhold their votes from Pelosi unless she gives them a Medicare for all floor vote. So actually get an official vote for Medicare for all. The arguments for this are it's going to put people on record, going to give ammunition for primaries. AOC and them respond, say, oh, there's a co-sponsor list. People say that the co-sponsor list is bullshit, which is kind of true. The people who disagree say, oh, it's going to be bad press if they lose. It doesn't make sense numerically because it can't pass. Now's not the time. AOC says, she was at least, I'm glad that AOC was at least, engaging with people over it, because very important for representatives to be communicating with their constituents and be clear about what they're doing. It's very helpful and very transparent. But she was basically saying there's an opportunity cost, hopefully you guys know what opportunity cost is. Basically, she was saying we should focus on things like $15 minimum wage and other things, which $15 minimum wage is a progressive ideal, instead of things that aren't going to pass. So, I can kind of see I kind of see merit to both sides, I feel like. So I can't really come down hard on one side. But what's clear is there's some things that people are saying that I think that are just out of bounds. Like, I think I saw Benjamin Dixon say that he basically called Breonna Joy Gray like an Uncle Tom, which I thought was absolutely disgusting and unbelievable. Absolutely disgusting. And then you had, Jimmy Dore is maligning the intentions of AOC. He and his fans are basically saying AOC is a sellout. She's like Nancy Pelosi. He's saying that she's standing between us and healthcare, which is total bullshit. So, you can hold the opinion of being for, withholding the votes in exchange for a Medicare for all floor vote. That's fine. You can also hold the opinion that, that can backfire. That's fine. But the problem is when you start doing this crazy stuff where you're just going insane, like calling Breonna Joy Gray and Uncle Tom, or saying that, AOC's a sellout, Nancy Pelosi, Mama Bear, that's fucking stupid. So Kyle responded because Kyle is one of those people who is in the camp very strongly of let's withhold votes from Nancy Pelosi unless she gives us a Medicare for all floor vote. But he's trying to distinguish himself from that group because he sees something going on there that he wants to separate himself from. So he says, hey, Eric Levitz, every time I talk about this issue, I make crystal clear that I'm not maligning intentions. I've never once called AOC a sellout or a careerist. Quite the opposite. I say it's an honest disagreement. Please correct the record on this. And he says, every single time I discuss this, I go out of my way to say we need to treat this as an honest disagreement instead of maligning intentions. I know those who disagree mean well. I freaking co-founded JDEMs. Please correct. So basically this is what he's doing now. He also, somebody says this, okay, this guy's a Jimmy Dore fan. You can go to his account. He's a Jimmy Dore fan. But this is a sentiment that's held by all Jimmy Dore fans. So he says, you want a left Tea Party but won't admit AOC is a careerist and a sellout. The Tea Party was a rabid dog, zealots, and an insurmountable force. They terrorized the Republicans into political submission. They didn't engage in high-minded excuse-making. Toughen up. So he's here saying that AOC is a careerist and sellout. And I don't know if the Tea Party was really in the business of getting legislation passed, as they were more like shutting down government and preventing things from getting passed, which I feel like is a very different thing. But I don't know if the Tea Party got legislation through. I thought they were just a group that essentially was just preventing anything from getting passed, shutting down the government over Obamacare, stuff of that nature. Trying to get something passed and not passed, trying to get stuff not passed is a lot easier, a hell of a lot easier than actually getting something passed. Two very different things. But Kyle responds, he says, "There's a difference between corporate sellout enemy and ally who has poor strategy and is weak. When you blur those lines, your allies won't listen to you because you malign their intentions when their intentions are pure." Earlier this week, some idiot posted AOC's fundraising and it was thousands from Amazon. Turns out that was literally small dollar donations from Amazon workers. Don't be an idiot. Corporate Dems are sellouts. Justice Dems are allies with poor strategy who need to grow a spine and fight. So I had watched his video that he put out. It was something, I think it was just titled Leftist Infighting, I believe was the name of the title. And in the video, he was essentially breaking down all of this stuff that he's trying to say here, which is, he has a disagreement, but he was trying to say people on both sides should not be maligned with their intentions. I think that, we can, everybody I think can agree, or not everybody, obviously there's going to be people that disagree, but, Jimmy Dore definitely is very ego-driven. He's a very egotistical guy. But we can separate the name Jimmy Dore and talk about the whole withholding the votes and, trying to get a Medicare for all floor vote. I think you can separate those things. So I think it's really undeniable with anybody who's really any sense of rationality or being, impartial or whatever, or objective. He's definitely an egotistical guy, very ego-driven. He's not really into the sort of rational, objective side. He's maligning AOC's intentions, claiming that she got her start on his show, which is absolutely insane. He's very narcissistic, right? So I think that's true, but I think Kyle always tries to kind of play the middleman guy. So he is here basically saying, I am not calling AOC a sellout. I am not calling AOC a shiller careerist. Although there's some people on the left doing that, I am not one of those people, is what he's trying to say. Because this is really where it gets dangerous. If you want to have a debate about withholding Medicare for votes for Medicare for all floor vote, that's fine. So is it fine to have the opinion that we should withhold votes from Nancy Pelosi to get a Medicare for all floor vote? Yes. Is it fine to think that there could be potential backlash from that and we need to do more before we get to that point? Yeah, sure. Is it okay to say that AOC is a careerist? No, it's not. That's not okay. So it's okay to have these debates, hold these opinions. It's totally fine. But once you get to the point where you're literally you're demolishing and just completely eviscerating everything that you've built up, right? We've built something here. We've built Justice Democrats. We're growing the progressive movement. And when you just kind of, just sort of cut their heads off, essentially, well, what do you have? You don't have anything, right? What is there? There's nothing. You'll have your movement, but you can't have a people's movement like, protesting movement or pressure movement without having legislators and politicians. You have to have both. You can't have one and not the other. You have to have both. So you can't just sort of cannibalize everything that you've built. It's not a smart move. And that's the worry that I have, and that's why it's kind of better just not to sort of insert into this situation. But that, to me, ends up being the problem. And Kyle Kulinski is very, very, very heavily in the camp of we should withhold votes from Nancy Pelosi and demand Medicare for all floor vote. He is very strongly in that camp. But even he sees the sort of destructiveness that is coming from Jimmy Dore and his fans, because this is, and this isn't something new, right? They've thought about this about AOC for a while now, that she's a sellout, a careerist, mama bear, all this other crap. So he is basically drawing the line in the sand and saying, hey, I am not one of those people. Do not group me in with those people. But Kyle also sent out a tweet saying, there's a leadership vacuum among elected officials on the left. Bernie recanted, nobody else stepped up. As a result of the lack of a unifying figure and force harnessing energy into productivity, the left is eating itself alive. Not left versus corporatist, but left versus left. And this is absolutely true. The left was, it was far, far more unified during the 2020 presidential run with Bernie Sanders there. There were a bunch of trolls with the Tulsi Gabbard people, but she never had any real shot of winning. Same thing with the Andrew Yang people. But essentially what you have is, it's absolutely true. And there's a lot of people who think that, you don't need a leader. Everybody just thinks for themselves. A leader is very, very important and very needed for sure. I don't know who's going to step up in that Bernie Sanders role, because he was the leader of the progressive movement, right? Everybody knows that. And now that he's sort of stepped away, right? He's still doing his work in Congress and stuff and trying to fight for, a heftier stimulus checks and all that stuff. But he's really stepped aside, and he's kind of said, okay, I'm going to kind of step back now. I'm an old guy. I've done my stuff. I'm just going to kind of step back. And there hasn't really been anybody who's really stepped into that role. And we don't have that yet. Until we get that, I think there will be a lot of the left eating itself, which I think is really not productive and really just harmful to the movement and to the cause and all of the issues. But you could see that really as soon as Bernie Sanders dropped out of the presidential race, it kind of started. So you could kind of see that going on. But yeah, this is absolutely true that there's a leadership vacuum going on. And who's going to step up to be that unifying leader? Honestly, I couldn't really tell you who. I really don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. Is it going to be AOC? Is it going to be Ilhan? Is it Rashida? Is it Jamal Bowman? Is it one of the new people who are even newer? People forget, man. Like, the squad's been there for 2 years. People are acting as if they've been in there for 3 terms in the House, which is 6 years. They've been in there for 2 years, 1 term. So that's not really all that much time to really do much, especially when you're so marginalized in the House as well. So, I think this is definitely on point.